All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. But welcome back to another Kneat Solutions webinar. My name is James Carey. I am the Digital Marketing Events Manager for Kneat.com. Kneat Solutions. You can find us at Kneat.com. And I'm just glad to have you back here. Today, we have another Kneat Insights webinar talking about the ISPE Digital Validation Guide and getting some expert insights. We're joined by the two co-authors of the Good Practice Guide on Digital Validation, as well as our very own solutions engineer, Emma Carey. Those who have joined us before will be familiar with Emma and her spectacular demos of Kneat Gx. So we'll hear from our experts and then get a little insight on Kneat and the demo in just a little bit here. I want to touch on some housekeeping items for the webinar in case you haven't joined us before. We recommend using earphones or a headset to listen into the event on your computer's audio. You should hopefully be able to hear me now as I'm talking. This is a listen-only mode. You don't have to worry about being on camera or microphone for this. You're not in a Zoom meeting, but we do still want you to engage with us, and there are a couple ways that you can do that. To the right of your video screen, there should be three different options. A chat box where you can let us know who you are, where you're joining in from, maybe who you're with as an organization, and let us know your thoughts. Comment on the guide as we're going through it. Let us know what you think in the chat here. We've got Joanna joining us from a wet and windy UK and Triona joining from Cork. We're always happy to see some of our Irish and European counterparts joining us in here. And Joanna already has a good question. Will a recording be available later? Yes. This recording can be caught up on later, but we always love to have you live here to get our expert insights, and join us later for a live Q&A, which is a great transition into another way that you can engage with us. In that same chat bar next to the chat should be a Q&A option. Feel free to put in your questions for our experts at any time throughout the webinar. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a live Q&A with the experts. We'll answer as many of your questions as possible at the end, but don't worry, any questions we get to or any questions we don't get to will still be answered. We'll have a Kneat representative reach out to you separately after, within a few days after the webinar, to answer your questions, make sure that you get those answers and can follow up on any conversations. And then finally, we have our polls tab. We'll be running a live engagement poll just here in a minute. In fact, it should be open already, so you can go ahead and give in your answer, but we'll come to those in just a moment. Following the webinar, there'll be a couple ways that you can follow up. There'll be a feedback survey to let us know what you thought about the webinar, what topics you want to hear about in the future. And of course, you can always reach out to us on social media, on LinkedIn or on X, formerly Twitter, as well as through our email, info@kneat.com. That's info@kneat.com to get more information on webinars, upcoming events, anything Kneat related, as well as get a more one-on-one demo. So thank you for your attention and thank you for joining us. Those are the ways you can engage with us while the webinar is happening. Here's a little bit about what you'll hear today. I'm going to talk about Kneat as a company, Kneat Gx as a digital validation solution. I'll introduce the speakers a little bit, but then we're going to dive right into our main topic, the ISPE Good Practice Guide on digital validation, and get those key insights from the co-authors joining us. Then we'll hear a little bit about what's next for digital validation, and more on how Kneat Gx delivers those digital validation best practices, and get some insights as well from Emma and get a demo of Kneat Gx. Then finally, as I was talking about, we'll get that live Q&A at the end to answer all of your questions. But first, before we get into any of that, we want to hear from you. We like to ask our audience this every webinar, get to know where you are on your journey to digitizing validation. So go ahead and click on that polling tab to the right of your video. Click on poll and choose your answer here and let us know where you are on your journey to digitizing validation. A, it starts today with this webinar. B, you're in some initial discoveries, some prep work is done, some discussions are happening, but maybe you haven't launched yet. C, you're about to launch your first digital validation project. Maybe you have that one launched, you're just dipping your toe into it, and you're fairly new. Or D, you've got some projects being delivered digitally already, and you're considering how to scale further into your organization. Maybe other work sites, maybe other projects and processes. Let us know where you're at on that. I'll come to those results in just a second so we can give our experts some insights on the audience that they're speaking to. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Kneat. I'm not going to go fully in depth here. Hopefully everyone is familiar with Kneat as you're joining us, but in case you aren't, we are a publicly listed company, a publicly traded company listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We hold ourselves to a high standard of governance, especially for that reason, but also because of all of the data that we are dealing with and all of the various work processes that Kneat Gx is counted on. We have employees all over the world. We are truly a global organization with operations 24/7. I myself am based in North America, in the US. I've got counterparts in Canada, in Europe, in Ireland, which is where we're headquartered, in Limerick, Ireland. And we are the validation platform of choice for 8 of the top 10 global pharma companies, including 3 of the 4 COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers. So you know that when a company needs their product right first time, they need to trust and validation. We are a trustworthy source. And that's because all of the development for Kneat Gx, our validation platform, is done in-house to keep the highest quality and keep to our ISO certifications, which we have them there, 9001, 2015, and the 27001 certifications that we keep to. So that's Kneat as a company. Kneat Gx closely tied in there. Kneat Gx is our software as a service validation lifecycle management platform of choice for so many of those pharmaceutical companies and manufacturers. It is one platform that can be accessed from any device with an internet connection, a phone, a tablet, a computer, wherever you are, to make validation easier, faster, and smarter for your companies. Keeps you audit ready at any time and eliminates 100% of the hassle and waste and logistics that are related to keeping paper validation logs. So to keep it simple, we are one solution for any work process. These are just a sampling of some of the different work processes that digital validation and especially Kneat Gx can be used for, to cover any of those. But don't just trust our word for it. These are a few of the reasons why we're chosen as the platform of choice for these companies. We are one platform. We're easy to use, easy to train, easy to scale, and we're audit ready at any time. That's what we help your company to be. But don't always just trust our numbers for it. I'm not going to go over all of these numbers in depth. Safe to say that you can view these numbers as well as many other case studies on our website. But these are just a few statistics found in independent partner benchmarking studies. These were not conducted by Kneat, but these are partners of Kneat, people who have used Kneat Gx, and this is what they found. Reduced validation lifecycle times, reduced equipment changeover times, reduced labor hours, and savings in the hundreds of thousands, almost $1 million US dollars in ERP deployment, and 40% more efficient than our leading competitors in the digital validation space. But you're not here to hear about Kneat Gx. You're here, thankfully, to hear about the ISPE Good Practice Guide on digital validation. I'm happy to be joined by 2 of the co-authors here, Dave O'Connor and Phil Jarvis, co-authors of the ISPE Good Practice Guide. They'll give us their insights on that guide. And then we'll hear from Emma Carey, Kneat's own solutions engineer and demo presenter extraordinaire. But I want to publish our results of our poll and quickly go over those before I hand it off. So 10% of our viewing audience today, or our responders today, are starting brand new today, never heard of digital validation. This is their first foray into it. So you're going to dive straight into it with some of these insights. About 42% are in initial discovery, which is great. You know a little bit about what we're talking about, but maybe you haven't launched your own projects yet. That is exactly what we love to hear. Hopefully this will push you over the edge into starting those digital validation projects and choosing Kneat Gx for it. But we'll hear about some of the insights. 10% are about to launch or have launched maybe one project, and they're dipping their toes into it. They're getting a chance to try it out. And then 35% are considering scaling. They have maybe 1 or 2 projects, but they're looking at how to scale into other processes, other sites, anything like that. So the The sorry, Robert distracted me with a chat here. Where's option E, using on projects for all customers? That's a great question, Robert. Great feedback. We love to hear it. We're limited to 4 options here, but maybe I'll start asking people to give specifics in the chat like you did. That's great to hear. We love to hear that as well. These insights in the industry are for you as well. So we're glad to have you here. So the bulk of our responding audience here is in initial discovery or considering how to scale. So thank you all for contributing to that. And now, without further ado, we'll get to our main segment here. I'm going to welcome on Dave O'Connor and Jarvis, co-authors of the ISPE Good Practice Guide on Digital Validation. I'll let them get into more introductions about themselves, their backgrounds, but suffice to say, we're glad to have you here, Dave and Phil. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. My name is Dave O'Connor. I work. I've contributed to the ISPE Good Practice Guide on Digital Validation. My day job is a C&Q manager. I'm based on the MSD side at the moment. I work for No Deviation as a consultant. And yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Phil, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, so thanks for joining today. So I'm one of the co-leads of the digital validation guide. I guess in the last 10 years, I've implemented various digital validation solutions for 2 or 3 of the leading biotechs in the world. And it's great to be able to discuss now that it's been that. Dave, you can introduce the subject.
Yeah. So how did this come about to start with? So this is the digital validation guide. It was published back in, I think, early May this year, but it came with a combination of maybe about 5 years ago. There was a lot of discussion around digital validation, about paperless validation, from the ISPE community of practice related to CQV, commissioning qualification, and it was about 2022, I think, Phil, they decided to spin off their own separate chapter or sub committee on the paperless validation, what it was called, but later changed name to digital validation. So there was so much discussion on the C&Q COP that decided to set up their separate subcommittee. Various people came together, and there was a lot of similar discussions coming from different large companies. So I think there was growing momentum, a lot of blog posts within the ISP. Decided to bring these all together about 18 months ago, and then put forward a proposal to put a good practice guide out there. And the team fine-tuned on various chapters, and there was momentum behind from industry to push forward and go for good practice guides. So that's where it initially came from. So it was a combination of quite a lot of people. There was a huge amount of people involved in this good practice guide. And looking at the stats from earlier, it sounds like there's 10% new, 40% are initial discussion. So this guide is very, very useful for anybody who's starting their journey on digital validation. So if you just go to I own the chapter, so I can go to it. So here, the Good Practice Guide is divided into 6 chapters. So over the next 15 or 20 minutes, we'll just go into a bit of detail on each chapter. So the initial chapter talks about the advantages of digital validation tools and the background to the current state of DVTs, digital validation tools, and their projected advantages. Chapter 3 is about digital validation concepts, and this discusses the major concepts out there regarding digital validation. Crafting a business case. So for people who are in the initial discussions or new to this whole concept, crafting a business case is a very important part of explaining to leadership how you put forward a good business case and how you define your return of investment. So that's what the next chapter is about. DVT implementation. So I hear there's about 10% on the call who are just about to launch their tool. So this implementation chapter is very much geared at that stage of the process when you are about to roll out your implementation. Next in the life cycle would be governance. It's about how you maintain your digital validation tool, how to set up good governance, how you can use governance to roll out maybe standardization across an organization as well, using your tool as a catalyst for that standardization. And then the final chapter is about your regulatory considerations regarding being audit ready. And there is actually another concept paper that's like an appendix to the Good Practice Guide, and that talks about future advances, and it goes into more kind of forward looking about where digital validation tools will go in the next 5 or 10 years. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about over the next 15-20 minutes.
So just going forward, so one of the first things in the chapters that are discussed is basically the chronological sequence over the years of how DVDs have evolved. So really over the last 10 to 15 years, what we have seen is DVTs have become widely adopted. So it's great to see in the stats today that 40 to 50% of people are starting their journey or already started and scaling. So that's generally what we have seen within the subcommittee. And generally, when we look about last 20 years, DVTs first started of course, we had paper, and then we wanted to have the ability to store and electronically sign validation excuse me, documents. So a lot of DMS systems became used for validation, for that ability to store validations, to sign validations off. But really, they just became repositories for validation. And what really the industry was looking for is systems where we can execute validation as well, where we can do everything within the system so that we can pull all of the data out, such as what are the metrics around approvals, status of validation documents. So really, people have now that have implemented DVTs really centered around really moving from that document-centric mentality to a digital-centric or data-driven mentality now, where we can gather all of that data together. And really now going to the future, as Dave was saying, a good practice guide for validation 4.0 has just been published by the ISPE. And really, DVTs are a base stepping block of achieving validation 4.0 principles. And we'll show you today how potentially using a DVT with emerging technologies such as AI and ML can really drive us towards that validation 4.0 paradigm. And that's where we're going to in the future.
Just on this slide here, I do one thing. This is probably my favorite slide of the deck. The images at the bottom. It shows where a lot of the industry was 5 or 10 years ago. Paper on the desk, pushing paper around the office. Going to your manager looking for approval. If he's not there or she's not there, you have to look for somebody else. And it's an arduous process. It's a very manual process. And it's very difficult to track where the documents are and where the issues are. You're moving that then to, as I say, paper on glass or paperless. When you go to your digital tool, but you still haven't. That's in your second image. You're still quite siloed with your data. It's still, we haven't moved out to the right yet, where we're calling present, but where it's more automated. There's more traceability of your execution. There's more standardization of your execution. And as you move more to the right, we're not there yet, but that is where there's more, real-time reporting. There's, certain data flows as well from your digital tool out, but we'll talk about that more later. But one thing I would ask, if you just look at those images and try and keep those in the forefront of your mind as we go through the rest of the slides, will make more sense.
So just going on to DVT, some of the concepts that we come up with. So a guide wouldn't be a guide without another 3-letter acronym. So, we had to come up with something. So DVT was basically presented as a concept by the Good Practice Guide So DVT stands for Good Digital Validation Tool. And what you can see here in this diagram is how digital validation is centric to a lot of different processes. Pharma 4.0, validation 4.0, but also quality and compliance, knowledge management. Once everything is digitalized, it makes it much, much easier and visible to see the information. But what we will see and talk about later is then how we can connect to other parts of our digital ecosystem. So can I connect now to LIMS via this technology and pull data from LIMS, like my cleaning sample results? And how powerful that can be at driving efficiencies in your digital validation processes. But the base block here, and it's very timely, this Annex 11 has just been revised, and that talks about building everything CSV-wise on data integrity. And we also have the foundation there of being GAMP as well, because GAMP is the methodology of which we would validate a solution like this. So data integrity is really the foundation of these DVTs. And a lot of the DVTs that are available in the system, like Kneat, have a great data integrity, certainly a lot better than paper, which we were in, 10 years ago. But the integration bit with other digital ecosystems really is where we get huge amounts of efficiency in the future. But it is a real cultural change. As Dave said, if you just digitalize what's in paper, you will not get all of the efficiency out of your tool. This is a completely, for very effective companies that have implemented DVTs, it is a cultural mindset. It's like a complete restart. And that involves cultural change management, organizational change management, and also you've got to have a lot of knowledge management of where is the data going in your systems and how your processes work to digitalize things efficiently. Anything you want to add, Dave?
Yeah, just probably the Alcoa Plus principles. They're we have a lot more. They offer great advantages in a digital validation tool. You don't have to spend large amounts of time reviewing data entry issues. There's already safeguards in place within the digital validation tool to remove quite a lot of your Alcoa Plus issues. Also, when you're reviewing the document as well, it's you can also do it in real time. It's very accessible for reviewers to see the documentation, so it's quite easy to do that. I think with new advances in digital validation tools as well, there's more checks and balances there to make sure the correct entries are done. A huge advantage to digital tools is the trace matrix as well, from your URS all the way to where your test is conducted. So with a simple click of a button, you can see where your user requirement is. You check your surface finish, you check your temperature, it's in your user requirement, and then you can find directly where it has been tested in your test document. No longer you're going to the archive, trying to pull the data. And also with those concepts, you can also standardize quite easily as well. When you adopt a digital validation tool, you can use like approved test scripts and just use those across a whole organization. Currently working for a large organization, and we've tried to implement standardization across our engineering and our testing, and this has really been accelerated once we brought a digital validation tool in. It just made standardization a lot easier.
So going onwards, just onto a couple of things that Dave said there. Building a business case is one of the first steps to implementing a system. So every company that I've been in that's implemented DVT, I'm sure just like Dave, is always like, okay, so how much does it cost and when do we get payback? But the great thing about digital validation tools is these are very easy business cases to make. One of the best business cases that we've seen with members of our community is actually around compliance and quality. I think Dave has said multiple times when we've discussed this, quality will become your friend on your journey here. So think about all of those data integrity issues with paper. They all become resolved because you have the inbuilt Alcoa audit trails. you have all of the digital functionality protecting the originality of your data. And it all becomes much more transparent in a digital system. You begin to get away from things like GDP errors. You don't get GDP errors in a digital validation system when you have execution as part of the tool. One thing that Dave said about is obviously you have much more transparency around your review, approval, and execution cycles. So this is very useful, especially when it comes to big C&Q projects, where you're able to shorten down drastically those cycle times from weeks to days, because you have the visibility of where everything is real time. And you're able to execute efficiently as well. You can have multiple people all executing in the same document at the same time, rather than shuttling up and down pieces of paper in your plant. Nothing goes missing, which is, I saw it in our audience comments, the horror of when paper goes missing. That doesn't happen either, because everything is robust in the system and retrievable. And then the key thing that I always say about now in organizations is sustainability. Most of our organizations are striving in this world for sustainability. Not only do you have the sustainability around paper reduction, but it's your printing costs, it's the ink, it's everything. Once you add it up with your labor costs, it becomes a huge efficient ROI. And then one of the best things is you're constantly audit ready. And most of these systems have like an audit function where you can even pare back what an auditor can see as well, so they can have limited access to specific documents when it comes to audit time. So creating a business case for these, generally, when I've created a business case, you're talking maybe 1 to 2 years payback. And that generally, when you're talking to a VP of quality or VP of engineering, is a very easy business to make, as well as the quality and compliance.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of data out there already on business cases, and different companies are quite easily accessible. Just go back to the last slide, Phil, or who I'm not sure is driving. Just remote working as well. Just the concept of that. It doesn't mean that you work 8 hours a day and you have to go home and do some more work in the evening. It's complete opposite. What we've seen recently on a recent project is we're able to use teams in various locations globally to turn around. Currently it's automation, change control, being able to use colleagues in the States to, when the Irish team go home, that use teams in the States to work on it, and then teams in Australia to work on it some more and have it ready for us when we come to work the following day. So there's great efficiencies in using a digital tool where you may not have the correct resources in a remote area where you're doing a project, and you're able to use staff from right around the world to support critical projects. So that's also very useful.
Yeah. So going forward, talking about implementation, Dave.
So implementation. Here, implementation is probably where a lot of people here will be very interested in. It's all about planning. It's about putting a lot of planning into your implementation stage. It's about setting out exactly what you want as well, not just what the tool provides. Maybe you do not want all the features of a tool. So setting out, it's looking within your own team, within your C&Q team, your validation team, quality team, what you want as a user for the tool, and being clear on that from the outset. Then cultural changes, as we touched on once or twice, is a key part of this. It's changing the mindset and not ignoring that, and making sure you bring that from the top down, from the management team down, about the new shift from paper to digitalization. People, naturally don't want to change. They're happy with what they have, and you have to spend time and step back a bit and make sure you understand people's point of view when it comes to this. You also have to look at the maturity of your organization. Just because a digital validation tool is there, it will not, if you don't have a mature organization already, it may help you slightly, but it won't be the panacea. It won't help all your ails of your department. Your implementation section then here we talk about hypercare in the current company I work in, where we make sure we have enough resources around to support the team during this implementation stage. And then we peel that back and maybe do, the resources leave then after we have the initial implementation. Different organizations approach this differently. Sometimes people go for a small concept. Quite a lot of organizations go for smaller smaller projects first before rolling onto a big capex projects. Although I've seen other organizations who just jump in with both feet and go straight in for a big project. But there's pluses and minuses to both. Sustaining that is making sure you have a sustaining team, which we'll talk later in the more governance section. Then there's opportunities. We've seen that in current organizations I've dealt with, it's mainly the C&Q team will be initially driving it, but then you would find the automation team would get interested, maybe the shipping validation team, maybe the lab team would become interested. So there's opportunities as you implement this digital tool that other departments also go, hey, that looks like a good idea. We want to get in on the action as well. So there's quite a few opportunities within large organizations. Another piece to talk about, but I won't talk in too much detail because Kneat will get upset. It's about retirement and migration. If you do move on from your digital tool, you also have to think of this and bear this in mind.
And that's actually something that's discussed quite a lot in the new Annex 11 as well. So it's a good point where a lot of systems are cloud-based solutions nowadays. You have to plan for if you would switch systems.
Okay, moving on to governance. So this is an extremely important piece, and it's very much, you should definitely plan ahead and make sure you have a strong governance procedure in place, and roles and responsibilities are well defined. When you bring in a digital validation tool, organizations sometimes struggle. Is this an IT responsibility? Is it an engineering responsibility? Is it a quality responsibility? Make sure your organization is well set up for that. Making sure there's a good reporting structure. Make sure there's a good way of managing rollout of new versions and version control. And if there's any issues during that can be easily picked up and can be reacted to quickly and effectively. Also, what I find very useful is using standardization. Using your governance team to roll out standardization, especially if your organization has multi-sites. It's a great opportunity to bring standardization across your network, and using your governance team to implement that and achieve standard work. There's great efficiencies to be made with standard work, especially if the knowledge is already there. There's nothing worse when you go from one site to the next and have a completely different way of, mapping something simple like a fridge or a freezer, and then you go to another site and they have all these extra testing, and there's confusion between the different standards across different sites. With a digital tool, it's already there. If you have standard test instructions that you've managed from a global level. Key regulatory considerations. I suppose in this space there was very little guidance, if not at all, before when we started writing this paper and writing this good practice guide. We looked at various guides, and I think felt there's very little to go on really. Yeah.
It was just indirect things like data integrity. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really from the PICs and from GAMP. So from regulatory considerations, I suppose you look at your strategy around audit strategy and audit readiness. This is a change in direction. What you're used to having a war room, having a back room, scrubbing documents. This is no longer the case. You've gone to digital now, so you just have to understand how you're going to welcome an auditor to your site. How you're going to walk them through documents. How some tools now in the market have their own repositories that you can transfer documents into them, and after they've been scrubbed, then they're ready for the auditor, and that they may have access to certain limited areas within the digital validation tool. I would strongly discourage anybody from printing out from the digital validation tool. That's a regressive step. Definitely don't go there. I've seen some situations where people would sit with the auditor and present the tool and walk them through it. It's important during an audit to have an SME from your digital validation tool who can answer questions if the auditor does go down the route of asking difficult questions around the tool. It's good to make sure you bear that in mind, to have somebody with that technical knowledge at hand. So the concept paper. So the concept paper didn't form part of the Good Practice Guide. It's a separate bolt-on. It was released around the same time. It's very much future focused. But see on the call that there's about 35% of people who are already have a tool. So this is very interesting for those folks. It's really, the concept paper is probably looking into 2030 and beyond about what will the future advances be to for digital tools. One big thing will be data standardization and the use of data. If we have standard data and clean data, how you can push that data into other departments, like your maintenance department, into your laboratory team, into your cleaning team, how that data can be, as you're capturing it in your digital tool, how that scrub data can be pushed into other departments. Improved execution logic. Here, this is more as you execute to make sure there's less errors in your document, less GDP errors in your document, ensure your document is fully executed. So that's where we see that there may be improvements in the future. And then integration with the greater ecosystem, which is be your maintenance team, your calibration team, your periodic validation team.
So going forward, as I say, the future is extremely bright with combining a digital validation tool with other emerging technologies or integrating with other systems. So here we can see a DVT, which is usually a cloud-based system. A lot of these systems will have the technology to either take data from the DVT to another system like LIMS or an ERP system via an API. And just think of an API like a waiter taking an order and then delivering your order. And what that allows us to do is join some of these systems together. So if we think about, say, cleaning validation, you develop your protocol for your cleaning validation in your DVT. You then execute your cleaning protocol. You'll be able to pull your validated, approved results from your swab samples from your LIMS system into your DVT. And potentially, if you have integrated your process systems, your clean in place systems with a data lake like Delta V, you may be able to pull your data from your cleaning cycles directly from that data lake. And that helps you create your reports quicker. It helps transfer data from these sources of truth much more reliably as well. And this can really then speed up and make huge efficiencies in validation processes. But taking it one step further, how can we possibly get to a validation 4.0 paradigm? So validation 4.0, for those of you that may not know, is how do we move to almost real-time verification rather than this very document-centric process that we have at the moment, which is we make a change to a process, we update some input documents, we create a protocol to test the change, we then have to execute the protocol, approve the protocol, post-approve the protocol, pull all the data together and create a report. Well, what if AI and machine learning can do a lot of that for us, considering that we've digitized our validation process? So if we think of, let's change a critical alarm in our bioreactor, maybe for temperature. Well, a change for our temperature or in our design specs, AI and machine learning would know a change has been made in the system. It then would be able to take that data around that change and create your test case to test that change automatically. And some systems are doing this already this isn't not just 5-10 years in the future. There are systems out there doing this already via what they call RAG, structured large language models, and combining the two. So then they will create the test case and the protocol pretty much real time. You then approve that, so that human interface controlling the AI says, yes, that looks good, approve that test script. And then if we've connected our manufacturing control layer, then we can pull, has that alarm been implemented? Can I get data saying that that alarm has worked, and pull that into my test case as a result? But more importantly, there's other emerging technologies that may make validation engineers' lives much more easy. So say for a document check, say maybe the cert for the instrument, we can use OCR technologies to make sure the right information is in that cert. We don't need to go through that and verify that. So combining all of these digital technologies in the future will lead to huge efficiencies in validation and get us closer to that real-time verification rather than this documentation-centric step-by-step process. We begin to move into a data-centric process with more flow to it as well. And that really sets us up for validation 4.0 in the future. So obviously, the guide is now published. If you want to know more, please get in contact with me and Dave. Please purchase the guide. It's actually selling very, very fast at the moment. We've been told it's actually selling out just as good as GAMP did originally. But we would like to thank the team and the ISPE for publishing it. As say, this is not just me and Dave. There is a huge team behind this. In our community, there's over 40 people, and most of them had inputs to the guide, and a lot of the authors there are mentioned. So, it's really been a collaborative event with a lot of people. And with that, hand over to the Kneat team, unless you've got anything.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate that deep dive and deep insights on the guide itself. I'm going to quickly transition over into joining or welcoming on Emma Carey, Cell Solutions Engineer for Kneat Solutions, to talk a little bit about how Kneat delivers on this aspect. Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for attending our webinar today. As James said, my name is Emma Carey. I'm one of the sales solution engineers with Kneat, and I'll be bringing us through some slides today on how Kneat can deliver as a digital validation tool, and also we'll have the demonstration to go into some of the functional aspects of the application as well. So just to mirror on what Dave and Phil were saying, can Kneat Gx deliver what is expected? So with Kneat, you have your automatic data integrity and a Alcoa++ compliance built into the application. And this is done through the embedded FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliance signatures, and also through the inbuilt audit trail. So as you carry out your different tasks throughout the system, the audit trail is capturing those data sets and the documentation as well. We also have review and approval cycles built in and online test execution. So you've got your configurable process-based approval workflows, and also you have your comprehensive test execution functionality online as well. As Dave said, for remote working, Kneat is very beneficial. You have your online access through our SaaS platform, so Kneat can be accessed from any location through your web browser, your Google Chrome or your Internet Explorer. You can have your multiple users then accessing during the development of your documentation and your online test execution. For sustainability then, obviously Kneat, because it is a digital platform, it significantly reduces paper, so 100% digitalization of your processes, and it has a true copy functionality built into the application as well. So you've got your audit readiness at any time. You've got your controlled auditor access with the collections area. You'll see that as we move in through the demonstration. And we also have 0 audit findings across 121 plus life science customer base. So for the implementation, as Dave said, this is quite an important aspect of, the digital validation tool. So how is it going to be implemented? So we do have our Kneat consultancy team. They will be with you every step of the way through the implementation. We also have the option of our partners. So we have partner collaborations that they can get involved in some of the implementation processes. And then working with you, the customer, and your subject matter experts, you will go live with the application. So for the implementation and planning phase, and this would be where we would be, you'd be gathering your documentation, what needs to be digitized within the application, what process that you're going to go live with first. Also in this stage, you'll be provided with training, and we'll go through that in a little bit more detail when we come to our Kneat Academy training slide. The process mapping stage then, so this normally would be for a 3 to 4 month period. You would be assigned one of our process engineers. They would work with you to gather all of your documentation, your templates, and digitize them. And you would obviously be involved in this process each step of the way. Sustaining and maintaining then, so once you do go live with Kneat, you would be provided with a customer success manager. They will have your different touch points, so maybe bi-weekly or monthly calls, and they will be involved with any of your technical questions, and we also do have a full support team, and also that would help the expansion, so obviously building on your return on investment. Governance. So Kneat provides a comprehensive range of consulting services for all of your different stages through your digital validation journey. So you have your validation processes, digitalization. You can also obviously have your additional templates, validation work process lifecycle management, migration. So maybe you have legacy documentation in an external system that you want to pull into Kneat, and also you have your systems integrations as well. So Kneat Academy, we obviously provide a range of training programs for our customers from entry level all the way up to advanced. You've got your customer onboarding, we have administration. This would be how you would add your different personnel to the application, the different permissions that they receive, maybe the different sites that they need access to. End user then are the day-to-day activities, your review and approval cycles, test execution. Then a set of people from end user training would progress on to power user level 1. This would be a step up. So, your users that would be involved in maybe updating templates and properties within the application. And then once the users have spent a little bit of time within Kneat, developing their knowledge, they would have the option to progress to power user level 2. So this would be a higher level again, gathering documentation into packs for your different projects or validation activities. So here at Kneat, we're very proud to have our different customer white papers and their different case studies of how the success that they have found with using the application. MSD has scaled to 27 sites, so they have a 50% cycle time reduction. AbbVie scaling to 30 sites, they have an 88% URS approval cycle reduction. And then Biogen, I'll just pick out one of their points. So they have a post-execution approval time reduction by 58%. So integrations, so as Phil was saying, if you need to obviously, talk to an external system, such as LIMS was the example he gave, Kneat does have an open API, so it can integrate with your different systems. Some examples, if you need maybe import or export documentation, if you need a real-time feed, for example, for equipment data from an asset management system, or also requirement management, so maybe you need that interface between Jira and Azure. So Kneat is pursuing discovery into 4 pillars of AI for digital validation. So some of the focuses of the 4 pillars are with content creation, so reduce cost and time to market for new treatments. And we also have AI business intelligence, so fast and more effective analyzing of better decision making. We have our data sets and AI integrations, so using AI to guide improvements and efficiencies in your validation process. And also AI agents, so empowering staff and also reducing training overheads as well. So now I'm just going to switch over to Kneat and show you some of those aspects within the application. We're going to be focusing on how Kneat is proven with its user-friendly, configurable browser-based platform. We'll show you how it is best in class with its data integrity. We'll be showing some equipment, entities, system and requirements, how it's fully compliant with its review and approval workflows built into the application, how Alcoa based test execution, so your online test execution, and also that audit readiness. So we'll be showing you the inbuilt audit trail and also the collections area as well. So now I'm just going to share my
Thanks, Emma. Really appreciate that. I think we are unfortunately at time here. It is turning to 59 of the hour. So I'm just going to thank all of our speakers today. Dave, Phil, Emma, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insights that you were able to give on the Good Practice Guide and how Kneat Gx fits into those good practices for digital validation. And all of these DVTs, now I've learned a new acronym, digital validation tools. There is one question I will address on my own. I'll show it on the screen here. Joanna asked early on, will this webinar be available later? Yes, in the coming days following the webinar, should be, if not by the end of this week, early next week, you will get an email with a link to view this webinar on demand. Feel free to share that with your colleagues who couldn't make it, rewatch it again, and get as much of these insights as you can. We'll be sending out that recording as well as a link to some slides, or all of the slide deck that you've seen today. The demo will not be included in that recording, but you can always reach out to us, and a link that my colleague Lisa here put in the chat for a one-on-one demo to learn more about Kneat Gx and how Kneat Gx can fit into your specific work processes at your company or organization, and get more information one-on-one directly with another sales solutions engineer. We also have monthly demo webinars that we do at the end of every month, so stay tuned for July's happening in just a couple weeks here. Before we go, I want one more call to action here. I want to encourage everyone to read the 2025 State of Validation Report. The State of Validation Report is an annual report and survey that Kneat produces to go along with what insights, trends, challenges, and progress we're seeing in the digital validation industry. Every year at the start of the year, you as a Kneat subscriber, as an industry professional and expert, can take our survey to let us know what your thoughts are, what you are seeing and experiencing in digital validation. And we publish that report every year for you to take a look at. There's more information about this year's report, 2025, at stateofvalidation.com. You can scan the QR code on this slide. Or, of course, you can always email us at info@kneat.com to get more information about anything that you heard today. So once again, on behalf of Kneat, my name is James Carey. I'm the Digital Events Marketing Manager. Really appreciate you joining us here. Sending a big thank you to Dave O'Connor and Phil Jarvis, as well as Emma Carey, for joining us on today's webinar. We hope to see you again on another Kneat Insights webinar, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone.